We just want to know, how did you inspire the name? I think that's probably you probably would have had this question asked many times.
I was a bit obsessed with anything that was a bit dark or gruesome. Up until I think, maybe my 15th production, I did a show where someone died in every single one of them. So it always had to be.
In the world of TikTok, Instagram, and everything, do you think it's kids getting steered away from the traditional theater to more into digital world of TikTok?
I wouldn't say they're getting steered away. In fact, I'd say there's been a boom in kids who love theatre, and in particular musical theatre. And I think.
Do you think a lot of people do tend to stay in the industry, or they venture out to being something else, and this is more like a part-time?
Around here, obviously, it is very much a part-time because, we don't have as...
What was your biggest challenge running a theatre company?
Look, finance is a big part of it. I think a lot of people also see...
Do you think there is a lot of support from our local community here?
I think there is. I think we actually have a really thriving theatre community in the Fraser Coast.
Do you think, is theatre in danger?
No, I don't think so.
Would you ever think that theatre itself, like in Harvey Bay, who would be your competition?
I don't think it's good to say competition, only in the sense that I have this thing where I'm not a fan of competition in arts, because it does happen, absolutely happens. And
what kind of support do you think that our theatre industry or art industry need from council that you're not getting?
I think we're getting quite a lot, actually, which is probably something most people wouldn't expect to hear, in the sense that...
What the ticket prices gets up to?
I try to keep things under $50.
So you're the guy who decides what ticket?
I'm the one that does the math and hopes that I'm going to survive at the end of it.
Biggest on-stage disaster you witnessed?
Of my own? Was a set piece, I'm going to say malfunctioning, it broke, and then it collapsing and breaking someone's arm.
Oh, really?
The ambulance arrived on the curtain call. It was like perfect timing.
3 words that describe Macabre Theatre.
Family, dedication, and ensemble.
Hey guys, welcome to the another episode of Studio 9. In today's podcast, if you are an artist and you want to know the journey of what it takes to be director, artist, and everything, wearing multiple hats, well, this is the podcast that you don't really want to miss. And our today's guest, we have Matthew, who is the owner-director of Macabre Theatre, and his journey. That's what we're going to share today, how he started and where he's today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So before we start, Matt, we just want to know, how did you inspire the name? I think that's probably you probably would have had this question asked many times.
Plenty of times. It took a bit of time for people to get their heads around the name. It sort of comes from the type of theatre I like to do before I started the company. So I was a bit obsessed with anything that was a bit dark or gruesome. Up until I think, maybe my 15th production, I did a show where someone died in every single one of them. So it always had to be, I have a special blood recipe. I teach it to my students on Halloween. We have all these sorts of things. So I do really love a show that has a bit of macabre to it. And then not long after starting the company, all of a sudden, we skipped to musicals, lots of children's theatre. I was like, whoops. But it kind of already stuck, and it was a nice brand in the end, because it meant that we were so uniquely us.
Absolutely. I think when I read through and I was just going through your bio and everything, there is a bit of buzz to the name, to be honestly speaking. There is, and it's not like typical theatre names, which is great. So how long have you been in the Bay now?
So I've lived here since I was a kid. So I've actually lived here coming up to 30 years now. But I've been running Macabre for the past 12.
And why theatre?
Well, so I started as a teacher in my career. Well, that was the first thing I did straight out of high school and into university. But I always loved doing creative work. I actually did take some time off from my teaching degree and have a little pause and think. And I even went down and did my interview for NIDA, which is the National Institute of Dramatic Arts. Got through their program really far, actually got to the final stage, waitlisted, told me to come back the following year. But by that stage, I sort of made the choice to go back to teaching. And then over time, I just realized it was something I really wanted to do. And I didn't really need anyone's permission to do it. I kind of just needed to put the work in and make it happen.
Okay. So your journey being where you are today, I know that I've seen that you've worn like 10 different hats. You know, from a technician, manager, set designer, director, actor, you've done it all. You know, what it takes if someone's watching who want to get into this field, is it a very tough field to get in now, or?
It depends. I think if you want to learn, there's lots of places to learn from, and there's lots of really great spaces where you're going to find your people. The best thing about theatre is that you automatically get to gravitate to your people, and so it becomes pretty nurturing in its way that it is. In terms of accessing, learning about it and going to courses, it's changing a lot. We're seeing lots of stuff happening nationally. I've been following along with lots of other people about loss of university courses. I think we've lost 40 university courses this year. So it's getting harder for that part of things, but there are still certainly ways to do it. And the main part of it, I suppose, is being determined. All of the people that I've seen from my company that have gone off and done these fantastic courses, it's because they've had that self-determined streak that let them push through to make sure they got to where they were going.
Yeah, okay. So in the world of TikTok, Instagram and everything, do you think are kids getting steered away from the traditional theatre to more into digital world of TikTok?
I wouldn't say they're getting steered away. In fact, I'd say there's been a boom in kids who love theatre, and in particular musical theatre. And I think at times TikTok and stuff really complements it. So we see a lot of trends on that where all of a sudden kids are super excited about a particular show that's actually set in the 80s but then remade in the 90s, and now they have to do a revival on Broadway. So that was recently with Heathers, and it's a show that really teenagers today should not care about, but they absolutely love it. And part of that is because of TikTok.
So let's say when how do you decide what should be shot, in theatre wise,
what programming and stuff? Yeah, so programming for a theatre company it's tricky. We've gone back and forth quite a few times over the years, so sometimes we end up doing things that are a lot darker and a little bit more sinister, and your classic kind of shows that adults really want to go see, but it means you can't take the family. And then vice versa, we've had other times where we've gone very much family-friendly programming, and it makes it tricky because it certainly changes the audience. So what we've been trying to do lately is try to just get a bit from every group, something that's going to sort of meet the needs of different communities each time. So not every show is going to be for every person, and that seems to be working out pretty well for us. There's always some that kind of just boom as something everyone will come see, and they're the really exciting shows.
So do you come up with something that's done in the past previously, or is something totally new?
Well, so we do a lot of musicals that have been done on Broadway. So we license them from a rights holder. We ask permission and pay a very large amount of money for the ability to perform these shows. So it costs quite a bit. Musical theatre is the most expensive licensing system that exists in any media anywhere. But it's because it is so well loved, it's important to do. We have started writing our own shows. So my very first production 12 years ago was an adaptation of the original Peter Pan story. It sits in the public domain, so it means you're allowed to edit and change, much like Shakespeare or Alice in Wonderland, these stories that have been around for more than so many years. And just recently for our 10th anniversary, I went back and re-looked at that show, re-edited it again, changed the storyline, changed the themes, and added music. And so it became our first adapted musical, which was super exciting to be able to do something like that. And I think for me moving forward, the next step will be that we actually write an original musical from our company.
Okay. So let's say don't have much clue on how theater works. So from a basic level, so you pick up, let's say, a theme or a story. What do you call it?
A script or yeah.
So you pick up a script from a Broadway.
Yeah.
Let's say you get the rights to do it. So starting from there to the production to the execution, what timeline you
So pre-production normally goes for quite a few months beforehand. So once you select a script and you book a venue, it's normally 6 to 12 months in advance. Yeah. So I've already programmed my year for next year, 2026. It's a big process. Then about 4 months out from the show, you'll do a casting call. 3 months out is when you start rehearsals. We are very different at Macabre because we do all of our rehearsals on 1 day a week and we smash it out. So we work a lot faster than traditional companies. So we will get it done in 12 8-hour days and we'll have a full show. And then we have a tech week, move into the actual performance, and we're done and dusted in 1 weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. So is it sometimes it's the same crew who stays with you, or
we see lots of different people that shift through Macabre. So I'd say we've got well over 400 active members who have been in shows or are around or coming back and forth. More if you consider the people that have moved away from the region. I'd say we're closer to 1,000. But basically it comes down to which show's right for them, what parts are right for them. Do they want to be a part of the ensemble? Do they want to go for a specific role? But generally we have sort of about a handful of people that are sort of diehards that will always be there with me, which is amazing. But we see people float in and out, and that's great too.
And as a director and producer and everything, like, so you pretty much, once you get the script and once the audition's done, you decide who's playing what role.
It's all me, yeah. That's one of my favorite jobs to do, actually. I love casting shows because for me it's getting that opportunity to see where people are up to in their journey, what their skills are now and where they can get to in 3 months, and then figuring out what can I do to help them get to that next step. So it's as someone who, you know, is a teacher at heart, is a really lovely thing to get to do as part of that arts community to help people take another step in their journey as creative people.
I think that's great. I think because you've been in this business for so long, probably you would see somebody and be like, yeah, I think you're perfect for that character.
I love when they don't know that they're perfect for the character. I think that's the best bit. And they're just like, oh, why'd you give me that? And then a couple of weeks in, they're like, oh, I think I know. And then as they get to the show, they're like, thank you so much for giving me this character. And it's always quite hilarious when they don't realize what their potential is. And you have that lovely sort of privilege to share that with them, because a lot of people just don't see themselves from the outside.
Do you think a lot of people do tend to stay in the industry, or they venture out to being something else, and this is more like a part-time?
Around here, obviously, it is very much a part-time because, you know, we don't have as thriving an industry as we all want right now. Live theatre is exceptionally expensive to run. Our community is not huge. You know, the Fraser Coast sits just over 100,000 people, but trying to get then an audience of, say, more than 1,000 to any show is near impossible because of just not having the sheer numbers in the community. But the large number of young people who are working with us, we see a big wave of people sort of head off to courses, and we've seen lots of people head off and be a part of programs in Sydney at NIDA, here in Queensland at the Conservatorium, some that have done film work in the UK, Netflix series. There's no real limit to what people can do. It's just a matter of what opportunities do they want to take and how hard do they want to work.
So if they do theatre, does it open doors for them to be into the films?
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of people have given that sort of interview in the past that theatre is the best basis to go into those other things because it has I don't know, all those sort of core skills that will lend itself to the next step. Of course, you don't have to, but it is very, very useful. And there isn't anything like doing a live show. Like there's nothing that compares to the energy that you get from being on stage in a live production. So I think it's also just part of that, being a part of something, being a part of a team and creating a show together, which makes it so special.
And as you mentioned, running a theater business is a very risky business. Like it's very financially draining, and then time consuming, like where you said like 12 months and stuff by the time you even see ticket sales happening. And then the last thing you want is bad weather or something, and then everything goes for a toss.
Yes.
So we kind of know into the story of all this. So how do you cope with all that? Like the struggle. What was your biggest challenge running a theater company?
Look, finance is a big part of it. I think a lot of people also see. We don't talk about this a lot, I suppose, because. People don't talk about money all that often. And I know people often have a misconception about me and think that I'm getting like lots of money from something or this or that, or someone must be like, maybe I've got a secret benefactor, and if they're out there, please. But it's the reality is I've been able to make myself successful in this industry here in this space because I wear so many hats. So when we get to production, instead of paying for 5 or 6 different technical roles or designers or different pieces, I do a lot of that myself and just sort of make sure that that gets done that way. And that saves a lot of money. Over the years, I have obviously hired people to choreograph shows, to be vocal directors, to do costume elements and things. And we keep pushing to try and do that more, because ultimately the goal is for Macabre that we are creating a sustainable arts industry here on the Fraser Coast, where everyone's getting paid exactly what they're worth and nothing less.
So what is the... do you think there is a lot of support from our local community here?
I think there is. I think we actually have a really thriving theatre community in the Fraser Coast. We have so much more going on than other small communities this size in the country, insanely so. Yeah. So I think there is absolutely support. I think we're sort of on the cusp of some new great things, some new big booms. That's coming with, more people moving to the area, different organisations popping up that are finding their niche and really sort of meeting a need in that particular market. So I think there's some really great things coming.
Do you think, is theatre in danger?
No, I don't think so. I think also not if you're adaptable. I can tell a theatre story in an abandoned shop, which we've done before, on the beach, in a park, on a theatre stage, in an abandoned or historical monument. Like, you can do anything. And it doesn't have to have all of the bells and whistles that come with having an amazing venue. We're lucky that we do have that and that our region has amazing venues. But it's not impossible to tell a story anywhere. And as long as you have that creativity to adapt, you're going to be fine.
And is most of your shows that you do, are they like copyrighted? Like, can someone steal from you? What are you doing?
So because we license so much of what we do, we're licensing from someone else. We're already performing within that copyright, so it's we're pretty fortunate. It's why you don't get to see lots and lots of clips of the work, because obviously you can't just film a musical from someone and put it out there in full blast and be like, hey, look at the entire show we did. That is very much against the rules, so it makes it a little tricky. So it is really fun when we get to do our own original stuff, because we get to just share it. Just make it like out there for people. So it can be tricky, because the actual nature of theatre makes it hard to share what we're doing publicly. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and a lot of people don't see that. You pretty much what they see is just on the stage.
No. Everyone's so just used to like taking out a phone and just start filming, and our lovely ushers, they'll run at you, they'll get you, because that's the reality. Like, you sign a contract saying you will make sure that won't happen. So it gets a bit tricky in that space.
So with the shows, is it just one day or you have the same show multiple days?
We normally try to do, depending on what venue we're in. So when we're in the main stage of the Brolga, we'll do at least 2 performances over 2 days.
So when you say 2 performances, same performance
Yeah.
for 2 days?
Yes.
Depending on the ticket sales and everything.
Yeah, we've tried to do 3 in the past, and sometimes that's been beneficial. I would love to get to a point where we can do 2 weekends, because the performers, the creative team, they put in so much effort. But the Brolga Theatre is a 900-seat theatre. So if you want to do 2 weekends with, say, 5 performances, you want to sell at least 2,500 minimum seats to cover the cost of renting it for that much time. So it's a balancing act of making sure that you have the right number of ticket sales based on how much the show costs. Yeah, so it gets tricky. We've been working and sort of lobbying the council, if you will, to set up another performance space, which is the Fedroom Theatre next door at the Brolga. There are actually 2 spaces there, and we've been able to develop it into about 150 seats, and so that's been really good. But we're just trying to get the balance right on that, so it's actually cost effective, so that lots more artists can book in as well. Well, at least that's my hope. I don't, I won't speak for them, but that's my hope, that hopefully this venue will turn into something that lots of people can hire, and it's another space that maybe is more cost effective and just easier to do a show in, because the Brolga Theatre is 14 metres wide on the stage, and it's 8.5 metres tall. So just building a back wall for a show can cost a fortune. I think the minimum amount I can spend on a backdrop purchase is about $2,500.
Everything is getting done here, overseas?
I do a bit of a mix. So I've slowly moved into some digital stuff, and I've worked with a few of the theatrical companies in the country who print these artworks and things. So recently just did a beautiful backdrop mural with so Willie Pays is an artist in Maryborough. He has been there for years doing amazing artworks. The whole CBD is covered in his murals. The actual Brolga Theatre is covered in them. They're fantastic. And he was commissioned to create a piece for the 25th gala concert for the council, which we then took to this company and had the image blown up to this 3 metre by 5 metre piece that was then suspended via truss and hung from the ceiling, so it just completely hung over the top of the entire show. But this fabric's also rear illumination fabric, so when you put lights on the back of it, it completely activates the artwork. You can then also, depending on the colour of the artwork, Willie was kind enough to do it in a sepia tone for me, and we were able to then colour the palette and change the image based on what the show was happening.
So whose ideas? Do you have someone who is an expert in saying this should be the backdrop for this scene, or...
That's me. I guess that's me. Yeah. So as a director, that's your choice. Yeah. So we talked about the phrase they use when they're doing like drama schools, your directorial vision. If you want to say that, I forget about a lot of the terms because quite often I'm having a production meeting in my head with all my different hats on, so I sometimes have to remember all the different steps and sometimes say them out loud because I'm usually just doing them myself. So
it's amazing. I think like some of the sets where you go, there's so many people just doing that individual job, and when you're doing that, I think in a way it kind of that means you control everything and you know exactly what rope to pull where and which direction going. I think that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And you're not relying on anyone, and you're the only one to blame for it if something goes wrong.
When I started theatre, I was a stage manager, and that certainly comes into play as a director and a designer. So I'm used to being the person that has the full list of the, hundreds or thousands of cues for the show and calling them all out. So that's what I do every year when I go to the Woodford Folk Festival. I'm the stage manager for the opening and closing ceremony there, and that's my little gig away from town that I go have my little trip and go work with these awesome artists from around the world. And it's fantastic to get to sort of sit back and remember the building blocks, so that when you do create, you are building shows that are not just enjoyable for the audience, but are achievable for your team. Because I think that's the bit that sometimes can make it really tricky and very costly. So if you build a show with the idea of, I know exactly what building blocks need to go into it, it makes it very, very helpful.
Well, by doing theater, I know that it puts you in a lot of spotlight with a lot of people out there. So, had you ever been approached by bigger theater companies saying, "Hey, do you want to collab with us and let's"?
Not. Have I? I mean, I certainly have managed to get offers for things around contracts, and every here and now I'll be asked, would you like to activate this thing, and we want to put this project on, would you direct that for us? Which is really lovely. It's a bit different around here because it's not something people have been willing to pay for in the past. And so it's really nice to see that that's actually starting to happen, and that our industry has, a foothold. It's actually growing. And that we're going to see that sort of progress, where hopefully we have more festivals and art projects where we actually have paid producers and events management teams and directors and creative people getting to get paid for this work.
Would you ever think that theater itself, like in Harvey Bay, who would be your competition?
I don't think it's good to say competition, only in the sense that I have this thing where I'm not a fan of competition in arts, because it does happen, like absolutely happens. And a big part of starting Macabre was we wanted to try and shift the culture around that, because inside companies, people start to have really big sort of collisions around, I have to have the lead role. It's a phrase that I don't actually allow, that I don't like using. And anyone that knows me and knows my casting can't stand the phrase lead role or principal, because it tells me that people think that someone's better than someone else in that context.
That's right. It makes them feel that I'm the main character of the show.
Yeah.
The rest, everybody is just...
And I guess that is something that exists very much in the arts. So part of building Macabre was challenging that. We use what we call ensemble theatre. A lot of people say they use ensemble theatre, but not necessarily understand what we mean by it. So ensemble theatre is essentially making sure that you do have a team, that entire team is lifted up entirely through the project. So it's not about, counting your lines and going, well, I've got 2 more lines than you, so I should be number 1 microphone and you should be number 2. Because you met the kids who do that and you're just like, no, we're not doing that. And it's about making sure that the entire show should be good. Because as soon as you start thinking that one part of the show is the best and it's the only thing you need, the rest of your show suffers.
What is the youngest artist that has been into your studio?
So we do classes every week. So we have theatre classes to help build skills and get kids ready. We start really simply, to be honest, to begin with, in that first sort of primary and early teenager years, because being on stage is quite scary. It can be a bit of a mental block, and it can really sort of be a negative experience if it's not done right. So we don't push our younger people to be on stage too early. We have opportunities if they really want to do it that they can. So we'll do our school musical programs in the holidays. We've just done one recently called, for Mary Poppins Jr., and that was for 8-year-olds to 18-year-olds. But our actual classes, we tend to do smaller, family-friendly, like family support performance nights to get them ready in smaller venues, in simpler settings. So they just get a couple of skills and they feel a little bit more confident, because of the types of venues we do use, like the Macabre Theatre. We're about to do a show on Seafront Oval, which is a big deal, but it's a big outdoor show. It can be... It's not a great idea to just launch people into those kind of spaces without a little bit of effort and work and care taken.
So you do a lot of things outside theatre?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, during COVID, we had a project called Broadway by the Bay.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about that, but yeah, we'll get there, but yeah.
Yeah, so we do things outdoors, and that's been super exciting. I love doing outdoor shows. I have a long history in that. Since I was 19 years old, I've worked on the Woodford Folk Festival closing ceremony. That used to be massive fire show. It's changed over the years, and we've sort of refined our ways. But yeah, it's been a huge project with the Woodford Folk Festival, and being down there every year since, to be a part of that and doing this massive show. So I think 22,000 patrons watching was my largest show that I ever performed within. And I think stage managing wise, my largest group of people was approximately 600 performers.
600 performers.
On a stage that's also about 80 meters wide.
And whereabouts is that?
That's at the Woodford Folk Festival, yeah. So, and I love that. The one we just recently did this year, we did a pared back version, so it was only 12,000 people in the audience. So, but we had a team of 9 core people, and then we probably still had a good. Actually, yeah, probably still around 400 plus performers between our choir and our orchestra and our puppeteers that were all part of it. 0 run through, 0 dress rehearsal. I have multiple headsets on me, one for security and for fireworks team, another for my tech team and camera crews, another headpiece that went to a microphone that was to all of my performance leaders who had in-ear pieces so I could tell them where to move to throughout the show because they'd never walked it before. And then the show begins and my job is to take 3 weeks worth of information that I've been collecting and compiling and make sure that this event runs as smoothly as possible for the audience and to celebrate the final day of the festival, normally finishing in a nice big fireworks moment. So yeah, it's great fun. It's one of the best experiences. I love getting to go and do that every year.
You do that happens quite every year or?
Yeah. So I've been doing Woodford closing ceremony every year since I was 19. Yeah, so not too many years, but yeah, a few.
Had you seen the numbers of those going down? I think so.
Yeah. Festivals obviously have been impacted. We shifted to a different venue this last year gone. That's why we had the different numbers, but it's actually been really quite wonderful. It was a really lovely reset for the event, and we still got to keep all of the really important things that made it so special and all the contributions from all the artists in years past.
So tell us about Broadway by the Bay.
Yeah, so that was a program that came about in 2020 at the height of COVID. So I was actually trying to move the company to expand to Brisbane. And so I was trying to do originally Legally Blonde as a musical down in Brisbane. I'd booked in and was going through the paperwork for hiring Macabre Theatre in Brisbane, which is huge. Like, it was going to be a massive sort of step for us. But between things happening up here and not having the right shows, we switched the shows up and had it in Maryborough. COVID hit. We were halfway through production. We had to halt. When we reset and we could move around again, I think we were coming up to around the June, July holidays. And so I had a bit of a 10-week window to the next school holidays where I was going to have a break from school. And I went, okay, well, I still want to do a show. We've never not done a major musical in our calendar year ever. Why should this be any different? I have a tendency to be a little bit stubborn, especially if someone tells me no. I'm just like, well, watch me. And then I'll normally find some highly irregular way that we're going to get there. So we actually staged the entire show on Seafront Oval with a maximum capacity of 500 people. Everyone had their own square dedicated for them to sit within. It was all marked out. I had to go through so much with the health department to be allowed to do it. And it was just paperwork after paperwork after paperwork to make that show possible. It was the first time I actually applied for something called RADIF, which is the Regional Arts Development Fund. And I've actually only received it twice, but it's an amazing program. And I always thought I wasn't a real artist, so I can't go for it, so I didn't. And I sort of reached out to someone at the time who was working on that program, and they're like, absolutely, this sounds great, let's get into it. And we got the funding. We staged it on Seafront Oval, and it was a blast. It was absolutely amazing to do the show out there. Part of the reason we did it was so many people in the arts industry were displaced by losing their jobs that we actually were able to, I think it was like 13 technicians who were all off work from tours, from major venues like QPAC and Sydney Opera House, who came home. So some of my past theatre people who had been working in Sydney and Brisbane and all around, they came back and they helped run the show. We had our pick of the best gear in the country because no one else was hiring gear. And it was just fantastic. So we had this really sort of high-end show on the Oval because all of a sudden we had resources we could access. It was great.
It's kind of worked in your favor pretty much.
One of the really amazing outcomes from it was that the Fraser Coast Council didn't really know who we were. Like, we'd been hiring the blogger, just like many people. It took a long time to get to do that. Prior to when we started there, independent producers weren't able normally to hire the Macabre Theatre. If you weren't part of one of the major community organisations or a touring act, you couldn't actually get on the books. So that was a push back in 2016 for us to get on the books. So no one really knew who we were still by 2020. And it was the turning point. A few months after that, I went to some sort of information night for, I think it was either for council or for one of the cultural funds. And one of the directors of the arts department sort of stopped and said, "Oh, you're Matthew. I wanted to meet you. I saw your paperwork. I saw how you planned that event. Well done. We should talk." And I was like, "Oh, great, cool." I was just doing the normal everyday thing that I was used to doing, which was, writing a risk assessment, planning out the documents, making sure everyone knew what they were doing. All boring stuff to me. I'm like, that's just what you do. We do that at Woodford all the time. We do that at school. Apparently it was irregular and they were very excited. And all of a sudden, we had these sort of connections where we could be like, "Oh, well, great. Do you have any other resources we could help use?" And that's kind of been how it's moved since then. We've been very fortunate that our local council is willing to help so many of our local performers. Provided you have an idea, there's stuff there that can help you.
Do you think, as a local community here in Fraser Coast, what kind of support you think that our theatre industry or art industry need from council that is you not getting?
I think we're getting quite a lot, actually, which is probably something most people wouldn't expect to hear, in the sense that council can't do it for us. It's not their job. So a council shouldn't create artworks for the community. They should facilitate, they should help, they should have resources for people to create things. They should have resources that are easy to access, but their job is not to actually create things for us. That's our job. They can lift us up, but it's our job to do the work. And I think that's the bit that gets a bit tricky. I think the bit that's really missing, because there are so many wonderful artists here and there are so many wonderful ideas. Like, I get to listen to them all the time at different networking sessions, at when I volunteered on advisory councils, or even just going and seeing shows or gallery openings when you actually go and just get to chat to all the other artsy people that are around town. There's so many wonderful ideas. There's a middle spot that's missing, and that's the producer.
Okay.
And that's the hat I wear the most.
Producer is pretty much the money guy.
Money guy and the organizational guy.
So the guy who organizes the whole thing.
Yeah. So, your directors should be creative and thinking about what the story is going to look like and how audiences are going to feel about it and what they're going to do. But the producer should figure out, is the venue booked? Is everyone understanding the risks? They're the logistics, they're the operations, they're the one that sort of are passionate about making sure that artist's story gets told. And I think, again, this is a bit of the misconception with me, because I wear both hats, people think they're the same role, and they're absolutely not. And so I've been really trying to find ways that I can be a producer for other people, so I can produce content for other artists. So trying to meet new artists who have stories to tell, songs to sing, things that I can sort of help and jump in with and be like, okay, well, you've got this amazing stuff. Have you thought about doing it in this venue or that venue? We could apply for that grant and maybe you can get some funding that way. And it's a bit of it's something that exists in other parts of the world, but because our industry is still growing, it's what we don't have yet. And again, it's a job that isn't to be done by council, because it's not their job to choose who gets to do content. It's their job just to have the spaces for us to do content in.
Does venue make a big difference?
Yeah, because it impacts cost, it impacts where people are willing to travel. Years ago, we used to get so many more ticket sales because people would travel from Harvey Bay to Maryborough to see a show. That's not happening as much anymore. It's, people are struggling in every industry. Like, I don't think there's a single industry that's really booming right now with the difficulty in cost of living. So saying to people, oh yeah, we've got this amazing show, you should totally come along to it, buy this ticket, pay for that fuel, also make sure you finish work on time and get across. It's adding those extra steps to a show makes it really, really hard. So when I approached what's now Broadway, Brolga, by the way, sorry, it was about making sure that we finally activated a big show again in Harvey Bay. Because we haven't had a large-scale show where you can have, up to 1,000 people watching since the last time in 2020.
As we discussed previously, I think there is a big shift that's happening in Harvey Bay with the audience, with the people, the demographic of people coming from down south, So I think there's monies coming in, and that's what we're talking in our previous podcast. So I think now there are people who can spend that extra dollar on a really quality theater shows, and there are people who are moving into regional towns where some are really great artists and they're about to retire, or they want something small but not on a big scale, so I think what is happening to this region is in a good way, where you see that influx, and as you said, I think we are on that tipping point where something will change soon, or something big or something new or innovative is going to come up.
Yeah. Well, even the fact that we are doing this, this is a project that, so it's going to be a 22-metre wide stage performance space that is a mixture of both council stage pieces and my stage pieces from my company. So we've very much come at it from the perspective that we both have big things to share with it. And I don't think people are quite ready for what it's going to be. I've already started working with some of the community about making sure that we have like these awesome food vendors and additional music, so it'll be a bit of an afternoon for people to come and enjoy, and so get themselves set with their picnic and their cheese board and really have that lovely experience out in the open, listening to the waves as they're about to watch this show, which Mamma Mia obviously is set in the Greek islands, so it's perfect location. But I think people are going to be shocked at how awesome a locally created event like this looks. We're not looking for even costs anywhere near as what other big events are doing on Seafront Oval. I think tickets are pretty expensive to...
What ticket prices gets up to? Like,
I try to keep things under $50.
So you're the guy who decides what ticket...
I'm the one that does the math and hopes that I'm going to survive at the end of it. Because it is interesting, because people don't pay the same prices here as they would in the city. So the programs I run are often done at a fraction of the cost of what you would charge in a major city. The youth programs are probably... they would cost 4 to 5 times as much down in Brisbane or Sydney. Our tickets for musicals would easily be double the cost in any major city, easily, if not more. And part of that's due to the fact that we are just so thrifty in how we put our shows together. We keep them simple, and when we do buy things, we buy things we can reuse and we can remake over and over again. So, I mean, my staging system that I use for all my set designs, it has lived so many lives in 10 years. It has the marks of so many productions, but it keeps on going and it doesn't diminish. It's still an amazing thing, and that's why we can still do stuff for a reasonable price, because we know our community can't always afford, $150 tickets. That's not always feasible for anyone. So trying to keep things under $50 on anything we do. Some of our shows can be as little as $20.
Yeah, okay, wow. Yeah.
I think recent one, we just did $12 tickets for kids under 12. Because again, it's also about making things accessible for different parts of our community and making sure that our young people get to come see great shows and fall in love with theatre.
Very nice, very nice. How can we better engage young people in theatre and performing arts?
Ooh, I'm going to do the teacher answer and say education, because I can't help myself. I can't.
You mean it needs to be taught in the school?
It needs to be taught in schools, and it needs to be taught well out of schools too. And people need to understand what they're teaching. And because I grew up in a generation where I had the most amazing theatre teachers. They were people, they are still, they are, they are people who absolutely thrived on sharing that knowledge, and they made you passionate about it, and they taught you all the little bits and pieces and details around theatre etiquette and understanding why you were telling a story and what that story was about. It can be too easy to copy things and just go, oh, if I just mimic this thing I saw on YouTube, it'll be fine. It'll be a great show. It's not a great show. You don't know what you're telling the story on. So I always come back to the thing that I've been pushing probably the last 18 months, as I've sort of seen how young people have struggled with different elements, has been creative literacy. So knowing what story you're telling, why you're telling it, and who you're telling it to. And that's probably the simplest way I can put it.
It is.
But it's so important, because there is no point being an artist if you can't do that. Otherwise, you're just there for the applause. And that's sort of like, well, you're not doing it for the reasons that really matter, which is you should want to share something. You should want to change people. You should want to, whether that's, through jokes and funny silliness and having a great time and leaving a room feeling better than you did before, or whether it's a really serious story about topics that we'd love to see our community change their voices on and their ideas on. But you have to know what you're telling. And so for me, that's how we engage young people, because we actually give them the skills to do it instead of just sort of doing the basics. And I think that's also a difference in knowing in artistry, are you sharing good artistry and lifting people up, or are you making money off them as people that are just part of a quick program and get them out the door? And so for me, it's about, you have to be ready to educate people on what you're doing. Otherwise, you're in it for the wrong reason, because you shouldn't be making much money.
Exactly right. And I think the passion comes, right, we can see when you even talk about it, So I think it's a teacher bit that comes out, and also the passion for the theatre, for you being in this industry for so long. So now we're pretty much in the end of our podcast here. So we're going to do a bit of a rapid fire round. So it's a one-liner. Okay, so first stage role you ever played?
Oh, I was an angel at the gates of rock and roll heaven in Rock Pop Mime on Seafront Oval. Wore wings and everything.
All right, a show you dream of directing one day?
Cabaret, #1 show. Yeah.
Biggest onstage disaster you witnessed?
Of my own was a set piece, I'm going to say malfunctioning, it broke, and then it collapsing and breaking someone's arm.
Oh, really?
The ambulance arrived on the curtain call. It was like perfect timing.
Wow, they probably must be waiting for it.
Yeah, I don't know if they did that on purpose, but it was, the lights were going off just as we took the curtain call. Couldn't have timed it better.
Tea or coffee while directing?
Coffee to start the day, tea for the rest of the day.
Most underrated part of your running a theatre company?
Spreadsheets.
One artist or director who inspires you?
There's so many, but I'm going to say Paul Lawler, my first director at Woodford Folk Festival, kindest human and director I've ever worked with.
Okay. Opening night or final curtain? What's more emotional?
Opening night makes you want to be sick. Closing night makes you want to cry.
3 words that describe Macabre Theatre.
Let's go cheesy. Family, dedication, and ensemble.
Well, guys, if you watch this podcast right to the end, we thank you very much. Do like, share, and subscribe, because they do take a lot of time for us to produce and make these videos. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for coming to the show, and love to have a chat. Thank you.
Thank you.